5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To scratch and major itch. So enjoy your fruity pebbles, you yabba dabba bitch.
They've killed him! MCM Punk, and I am the voice of the voiceless.
Be the man. You gotta beat the man. Woo, woo, woo. You know it.
I got okey doke by Little Jimmy.
Live from the Pro Wrestling Report studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is Monday Night Meltdown with your hosts, Damian Nelson and David Hero.
I'm proud to say we're doing things the Vince McMahon way.
That's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Bringing you all the latest news and views from professional wrestling, Monday Night Meltdown is on the air.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio and PWRshow.com. Damian Nelson here, joined by David Hero and Matthew Thomas, here to talk about tonight's WWE Raw. It's a 3-hour Raw featuring the return of Mr. McMahon and also last night's TNA Slammiversary on pay-per-view. A loaded show here tonight, so let's get right to it. And gentlemen, WWE Raw began with the return of Vince McMahon, the owner of the company, who announced that he would be evaluating John Laurinaitis' performance all night long, and if it wasn't a good Raw, he would indeed be fired. At the end of the broadcast, though, as he attempted to fire John Laurinaitis for what I thought was actually a good broadcast, out walks the Big Show, who gives this year's I don't like being a superstar speech, or this month's I don't like being a superstar speech, and blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, gets in the way of that firing. And then out comes John Cena. For the first time, we actually saw him in the arena tonight. And then they get into a little bit of a brawl after Vince McMahon announces that he's going to be in the corner of Big Show with John Laurinaitis this Sunday at No Way Out. And if Big Show does not win, John Laurinaitis will be fired. It all was followed up by one big right-hand punch, a knockout punch, the third of the evening, to Vince McMahon from the Big Show. David, your thoughts on the return of Vinnie Mac to WWE Raw?
Vinnie Mac, tremendous return, gave the show that big-time special event feel. It's not amazing, but it's amazing the respect and the love he gets from that audience. They truly appreciate who he is, what he's done, and what he definitely brought to tonight's Big Raw.
Matthew, Thomas, your thoughts on Vince McMahon dominating this 3-hour Raw tonight?
Oh, it's always great to see him back, and it's been, I guess, about a year now since we've last seen him, but it seems like it's actually been longer than that. Much like David said, it's always good to see him back, especially watching the crowd's reaction to when he comes back, when that music hits. It's always spectacular. I think they did a pretty good job with him tonight for the opening promo and, of course, to close the show, but I really did enjoy a lot of the little backstage vignettes he was involved in throughout the course of the evening. So we got, over the course of the 3 hours, a good little dose of Vinnie Mac tonight.
I thought it was well done, and I definitely agree with both your points. It's amazing, as you talked about, David Hero, the power of Vince McMahon. And I use the word dominate because he was in several segments tonight and really interacted with a lot of different talents, including the Funkettes, Zack Ryder, Hornswoggle, David Otunga, John Cena, obviously, Kofi Kingston, Teddy Long. I mean, it really was fully encompassing of what Vince McMahon did, but the most interesting interaction he had to come when he talked to Daniel Bryan. And David Hero, I'm going to let you talk about those words that Vince McMahon said to Daniel Bryan, which was, if you're seen walking down the street, no one would picture you as a WWE superstar. Words I believe I've heard on the Pro Wrestling Report primetime for the last several years. David Hero, Vince McMahon said those words on TV to Daniel Bryan tonight. There's truth in that word.
I know. I could not believe it. I was like, wow, we've been saying that for months, if not, a couple years. And he said it right out to his face. And you know what? I thought they did a good job of fixing it up. Brian Danielson says, yeah, but hey, self-made, did it on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, Vince McMahon just brings a different element. I mean, let's face it. When it comes to performers in the history of the WWE, has there ever been a more loved and or more hated performer than Vince McMahon? I mean, you can have Hulk Hogan, you can have Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, all of them. But Vince McMahon has that larger-than-life personality. I mean, I have seen grown men cower to Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Fear. I mean, the respect, the fear, everything that comes along with him just elevates the entire game.
And he does have that power. He is that strong. He is the person who truly is in charge of the company, which is great. And he really did. He was the driving force behind Raw tonight, but there were several big matchups that occurred on Raw tonight as well, including the opening contest of Sheamus versus Tensai. Now, before that were to happen, we were to find out that Alberto Del Rio, after suffering a concussion this weekend, is out of the matchup, but Sheamus had no way out this Sunday on pay-per-view. We would find out during Raw tonight who his opponent would be. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, Matthew, what did you think of that matchup between David Hero's boy, Tensai, and Sheamus, the Great White?
I really enjoyed it. It's something up the road that I would definitely not mind seeing a program between those two. It was a very good physical match, and I did have a little bit of a glimmer of hope there at the end for Tensai with seeing a little bit of, I don't know if you necessarily want to call it progression with his character with the beatdown of Sakimoto on the outside.
Yeah, and you know what was interesting about that, David Hero? Nobody gave a damn about Tensai's beatdown of Sakimoto. It took longer than maybe it should have, but wow, pin drop, to steal a term from you.
Yeah, you know what? It didn't go over well, but it had to be done. They're definitely going to take now Tensai in a different direction, which really is much needed because he's, you know what? Tonight he proved that the guy can go. I mean, he had a great match with Sheamus. I know a lot of people probably groaned when they saw him come out, but hey, those two guys beat each other up, and I thought it was very entertaining.
The Fatal 4-Way made to determine who would be the contender for Sheamus' World Championship this Sunday on pay-per-view was going to be, or it ended up being, Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, the Great Khali, and Christian, all four former World Heavyweight Champions. And that match would happen later on. But before we would get to that matchup, Big Show would punch out R-Truth backstage, and it's no secret R-Truth suffered an injury over the weekend to his foot. Some are saying it is broken, being one half of the tag team champions. They're going to have to figure something out with that, and I'm not sure a knockout punch is going to explain away R-Truth long enough for him to get healed. The Generation X was officially announced for the 1000th edition of Raw. That's going to be in St. Louis on July 23rd, I believe. PWR is going to be there in full force at St. Louis's arena for that big 3-hour Raw. They also said several old names and faces coming back on that Raw 1000. It should be good. If you look back at the Raw 750, or maybe it was it wasn't 950 because that would have been recently, the Raw 750th episode and the Raw Homecoming. And when they've done these big celebratory Raws, there's been some great stuff that has happened on that. And I'm sure many of you remember, I think it was on the Homecoming when Stone Cold Steve Austin stunned the entire McMahon family, Vince, then Shane, then Stephanie, then Linda. And hopefully we'll see some shenanigans like that on the 1000th edition of Raw. Ricardo Rodriguez would team with Beth Phoenix to take on Santino Marella and Layla. And we found out, David Hero, that your star of the week from last week on Prime Time is suffering from some Beaver fever.
Yeah, but he also got the big victory tonight. He was on the winning end of that mixed tag match. Ricardo Rodriguez. Santino once again got Ricardo rolled.
Ricardo rolled. Nice. Daniel Bryan and CM Punk had a lot to say to each other. CM Punk likening back and recalling about 1 year ago, where he gave the pipe bomb promo on Raw. And as he was saying that, Matthew, I thought about how far he's fallen since. Still a big star, still very popular, but the meteoric rise that he took after that and going into Money in the Bank last year and then fizzling for all of fall makes what he did last summer less significant. And I found it interesting he was bringing that up with Daniel Bryan, as Punk called him, quote-unquote, a superstar before calling him goat face. What did you think, man, about that first piece of the interaction with those two?
Yeah, it was a very big reminder of last summer, and it seemed of how much of his edge, if you will, that he's lost. Of course, it's a little bit of a different character. You know, a heel at the time cutting that promo, and now a face. He's definitely had to tone it down a bit, but yeah, it's definitely a different CM Punk than we had a year ago. And to bring it up like that, it really does make you harken back to 1 year ago in the pipe bomb, and just it's not a 180-degree turn, but it's definitely a toned down, kind of watered down CM Punk.
AJ would get involved, and maybe she's trying to water down CM Punk, if you know what I'm saying. She would get involved, and Punk would say, and I quote, "I love crazy chicks." AJ played a prominent role in the whole Punk-Daniel Kane story, including the main event matchup tonight. David, a lot of people talking favorably about AJ.
You know what? As goofy as it is, the whole thing with her, she's done a fantastic job of being believable. She has been the believable crazy chick. And Damian Nelson, if there's ever been an expert on crazy chicks, it'd be you. So I'm sure you, from experience, can definitely, put that into perspective.
How dare you?
But hey,
things I tell you in private, you're bringing out here on a worldwide audience.
You mentioned CM Punk and his pipe bomb. Wouldn't you say that Big Show had his own pipe bomb moment tonight, confronting Vinnie Mac in the middle of the ring?
Yeah, but I didn't care. It did nothing for me.
Really?
I didn't care just as much as the fans there didn't care when him and Cena had the pull apart. I just didn't care.
But you know why they didn't care about that is because you knew with all those security guards in the ring there was going to be a pull apart. And also, is there ever going to be a better pull apart than Cena versus Brock Lesnar that we got after WrestleMania? Probably not. So that was the problem there. It was way too soon. But, the Big Show storyline, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was. And I think tonight, when he went chin to nose with Vince McMahon, that it just, you could see the emotion in Big Show. And I'm willing to bet that the stuff Big Show said is some conversations that him and Vince McMahon have had in the past.
The number one contender for Sheamus's World Heavyweight Championship was determined in a four-way matchup that saw the four competitors I spoke of earlier. Eliminated first was the Great Khali, followed by Jack Swagger, and then we were left with a near masterpiece between Christian and Dolph Ziggler. And David, you talked about how great those two could work in a program just a little while ago on PWR Prime Time. Tonight we saw a matchup between those two, which was great, but it would be Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler taking the place of Alberto Del Rio this Sunday at No Way Out. He gets a chance at Sheamus for the World Heavyweight Championship. A lot of people happy, but Matthew Thomas, do you think there's a chance at all that Dolph Ziggler walks out of No Way Out, the WWE World Heavyweight Champion?
As much as I would like to see it, I really do not. I thought it was a great four-way match tonight. The whole thing did seem like it was simply a formality to get Ziggler in that spot. I really could not have envisioned anybody else winning to go on to face Sheamus. But the thing with Ziggler, and we've talked about it multiple times before, but it's really apparent in this particular situation, is the fact that, we go back and forth, do wins, losses matter? And I don't think there's been damage necessarily done to Ziggler with as many losses as he's had recently. But a situation like this that comes up where you've got an injured Alberto Del Rio and then the person that's in the number one contender spot, you really have to scratch your head and go back and think, when was the last time this guy had a meaningful win? That's where, Ziggler losing recently like he has really, it's really hard to believe that he's going to go from that losing streak to beating the World Heavyweight Champion in No Way Out.
David, do you think that it matters that Ziggler has not had that win going into this now main event matchup, which he's no stranger to main events on pay-per-view, by the way? But do you think that it matters? As Matthew said, it doesn't have the recent win record to be seen as credible against Sheamus this Sunday.
When was the last time before tonight that Sheamus has had a memorable victory?
Sheamus?
I'm sorry, Dolph Ziggler.
Ziggler. A memorable victory. Well, it's been, quite a while.
Okay, so why would I believe that Sheamus could lose to Dolph Ziggler? I think that, you know what, they should have done an angle with Dolph Ziggler where he rises from the ashes. I mean, he's been getting beat nonstop for the past, several months, whether it be tag matches or singles matches or whatever. He hasn't done anything spectacular to say, wow, this guy, he's on a roll. There's no way he's going to lose. Much like the way they built up Shawn Michaels going into his match with Bret Hart. That's the kind of build he needs. Now, earlier on today, I was tweeting out that I thought Lord Tensai would be a great opponent for Sheamus. And simply because you could tie it in with Johnny Ace, that, it's one of his guys. And when Tensai and Sheamus start off the show, I'm like, okay, let's say Tensai steals one. And then they talked about having a battle royal to determine the number one contender. And then Tensai wins the battle royal. Well, now, boom, he's already been built up quickly in one night to be a legitimate threat to Sheamus. This pay-per-view, No Way Out, is going to be good. Is it going to be great? Probably not. But the world title match right now, with Del Rio not being in it, really is a throwaway because, Del Rio has a shot to beat Sheamus because of how he's gotten, gotten to that main event where he injured the arm. He's been on a roll. He's been winning matches. Now you put in a guy, like I just said, in Dolph Ziggler, who is extremely talented. And believe me, I know that Sheamus and Dolph Ziggler will have a fantastic match because you have the athletic, creative Dolph Ziggler, and you got the big beast in Sheamus, and they're just going to beat each other up, and it's going to be it will be a very good match. But like I said, you honestly believe Dolph Ziggler can beat Sheamus? And if you're saying no, but you really think that Dolph Ziggler can come out of this leaving Sunday night as the world champion?
Yes. I think so. Absolutely. Absolutely. Why not?
Why not? Because they need Sheamus right now to be that guy, that flagship on the SmackDown brand, because you don't have Randy Orton, you don't have Chris Jericho, you just bring over Brodus Clay. Christian and Cody Rhodes are going to be great undercard matches for the world champion Sheamus, but you need Sheamus right now to be the face of the SmackDown brand, not Dolph Ziggler.
Who do you think, Matthew, who do you think the fans are going to be behind more so on Sunday on pay-per-view for No Way Out?
I think the majority are going to be in Sheamus's corner, and that seems to be something that has really materialized here over the last month or two since they were finally able to separate him from Daniel Bryan. If you notice, it really does seem like he is starting to get that pop. And the Sheamus character, I still think he's missing that in-depth feud to really add another layer to the character. It's not really doing a lot for me now, having him come down, cut the weekly promos, and act like he's going to apologize for something and not, and tell a story about an uncle and get the word arse in there. I feel like there needs to be something built on that, but at the same time, he is getting that pop from the crowd. So I think you're going to see the majority of the people, in Sheamus's corner.
All right, well, we'll be talking much more about No Way Out this Saturday on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime when we bring you Be the Booker for Primetime. Ryback squashes the Commander-in-Chief. I'm done. I'm sick of it. I can't. I'm just, Anyways, the cage match that happened tonight was between the Big Show and Kofi Kingston. Big Show knocks out Kofi Kingston and then walks out of the cage. Did we see the tag team champions get a little bit dismissed tonight, David?
You know what? Poor Kofi. I mean, he hasn't had a solid tag team partner in quite a while. I mean, they're always getting hurt, suspended, or whatnot. Yeah, I think that right now you're going to see the tag champs off TV for a little bit. I mean, it's obvious when Kurt Hawkins, who was in a great tag team match last week, is now in a singles match with Sin Cara.
Right.
You know, and then the only real tag match you had tonight was a mixed tag. So they didn't do anything to elevate the other tag teams that they currently have on the roster.
Nope. Well, we didn't talk about it, but it was pretty freaking tremendous. Return tonight on Raw. One that nobody expected. Vader. It's Vader time. Vader gets in to the matchup on WWE Raw against Heath Slater, and of course defeats Heath Slater in a singles matchup tonight. What a surprise. It's been a while since we've seen the Mastodon on WWE television. David, what'd you think?
You know what? I thought the reaction Vader got was tremendous. I thought it was funny how he followed Kane in the ring. And if you remember Kane versus Vader at Over the Edge of Milwaukee, where the loser had unmasked, you know, for me that was interesting. But you know what? He did a great job. I'm glad to see that he gave Heath Slater exactly what he deserved, which was the beatdown he needed. And you know what? Vader time was definitely in effect on Raw tonight.
Matthew, your thoughts on Big Van Vader returning to WWE?
Oh, it was definitely fun, and one thing I noticed, too, was he really seemed to be enjoying himself. You could really tell that he was soaking it in, and that, along with the crowd reaction, really made it all the more special, and you got to think with, 6 or so weeks leading up to that 1000th Raw, that it might not be too unusual to see something similar to this on a weekly basis leading up to that big show.
Yes, indeed. If they did this for the next several weeks, that would be pretty neat. Somebody unexpected, a real return, not just somebody who's been gone for a couple of months due to injury or whatever. So we'll see what happens. We've got, about a month and a half before that big 3-hour Raw, or the 1,000th edition of Raw, rather, coming up on July 23rd. The main event was the tag team with Kane and Bryan going up against CM Punk and AJ. Weird pairings, but we found out why, because AJ confusing Kane, as one person on Twitter actually said, Kane must have confused her with Katie Vick, and causing Kane and Daniel Bryan to lose the matchup tonight. Punk and AJ get the win. Bit surprising there, David.
You think that's the only big red machine she's ever been with?
I can't answer that.
Well, you know what? I mean, good for Kane. I mean, you know what? I guess for a this is going to sound weird, a three-way that involves AJ, which now makes it a three-way plus AJ, it's just, she brings so much, you know, to this feud, which was actually kind of dry and not that eventful, but now it's like, wow, I mean, she really is that girl that you've always been warned about. You know what I mean? She's the crazy one that, you know, she's playing all... Listen, I want to be a bit surprised if she has and leaves Punk and Kane laying. But you know what? As much as you don't like to see the divas involved in main storylines, I think she's doing a fantastic job. The smirk on her face is believable, and wow, it just, you know, I like where it's going, and I never thought I would say that.
Overall, your thoughts on Raw tonight, Matthew Thomas?
I thought it was a very entertaining show. It was interesting kind of watching the 3-hour dynamic and kind of projecting ahead, knowing that we're going to start getting at 3 hours each Monday. But I thought it was an entertaining show. The filler matches all seemed to be entertaining, so I didn't really find myself getting bored. That being said, with it being the go-home show before a pay-per-view, I just really didn't feel like that urgency to hit the buy button was necessarily there.
And that's really what the purpose of the show should be, And if they did not do that, then could have some challenges with people actually placing that order this Sunday on pay-per-view. Well,
you know what, Damian, real quick, though. As good as Raw was this week, because it was so bad last week, what happens when Vince McMahon isn't on the show and he doesn't take up 4 or 5 or 6 segments where it's new interactions? I mean, we had a very limited amount of John Cena. We had no Randy Orton. We had no Chris Jericho. We had no Cody Rhodes. There was no Miz. There was no Del Rio. Okay,
yeah.
Guys that have been focal points in the last 6 months. Without these guys on every week, next week's Raw should be interesting because is Vince going to be back on Raw next week? He's not advertised to being, so you would think he'd be back because he got knocked out. But they'll have to fill 5 to 6 other segments next week without Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it seems as if it makes sense for Vince to be back. Seems like there's enough going on where you need Vince McMahon to hold court, if you will, on WWE television. We'll see.
But if Vince McMahon is back, then you don't need Johnny Ace.
Yeah, maybe you need the two of them battling, or maybe you need one of them on SmackDown. They've got options.
Well, we all got options.
And one option we're going to take is to talk to the rest of the PWR team right now and find out their thoughts on WWE Raw tonight on the USA Network. Let's first go to the social media diva, the hostess of the Fan Zone on PWR Primetime Saturday night, Linda Kay. The highlight of the night for you on WWE Raw.
The highlight was just Vince McMahon back overall. It was a well-overdue return. His presence, his involvement, his mic work, and his dancing even definitely brought some life back to Raw. It was just entertaining on many levels. Loved the Fatal 4-Way match with Ziggler coming out on top. Vader's return was tremendous. And also AJ, her kissing Kane and him leaving her embrace, not what most men would do. So I'm really curious what will come about with that at the pay-per-view too. But all in all, after tonight's Raw, I'm way more into seeing No Way Out this weekend.
Well, all right. Contrary to what Matthew said, good. Interesting, Linda. All right. Thank you so much, Linda Kay. Let's go now, continuing around the room. Let's go to Dwayne Williams, co-host of Sudden Impact Radio on Thursday night with Meathead. Dwayne, your highlight of the night from WWE Raw.
Well, I would have to say my highlight was Vader. I was not expecting Vader until he gave it away with the overuse of the word time. Then I figured out it was going to be Vader.
Did you really though, or had you read it somewhere?
Yeah. No, I didn't read it. There's a spoiler-free zone here in Baltimore. But no, he just said the word time in that tone too many times. It was like a dead giveaway. But I don't remember him getting that type of reaction in his heyday at all. So I think.
Vader was big. You remember when he attacked Gorilla Monsoon in one of the most heinous moments in the history of Raw? I believe it was was it Thursday Raw, Thursday Live? But whatever it was, he first attacked Jack Doan, and then Cornette was trying to stop him, and then Gorilla Monsoon started fighting back, and then it was awesome.
Definitely, Vader was a feared competitor.
Yeah, not so much when he was living in cages in WCW.
Did you expect him to go over tonight?
Oh, absolutely.
Even against your guy. Wow.
Oh, yeah. You can't bring Vader back and have him, do the JOB like that. There's just no way. That's just not going to happen.
Is this a one-time thing, or are we going to see him semi-regular?
Oh, he ain't. No. I don't see a scenario where that's going to be the case. Just saying. All right, Dwayne, well, thank you so much for that input on WWE Raw tonight. Let's continue around the room now and go to the man they call Meathead, the host of Sudden Impact Radio on Thursdays right here on Blog Talk Radio as well. Meathead, highlight of the night from Raw.
Well, the highlight of the night absolutely was the fist, the weapon of mass destruction to R-Truth. I'm paying attention but not paying attention, the sound drop that they made with, I don't know if it was Show smacking the belt or Truth smacking the belt, I swear it sounded like Jaw. I said, oh, I had to rewind it again. Oh, he got knocked the F out. Yeah, that was it. That was the highlight. Now, granted, I'm into Crazy Chicks, too. So watching AJ run around, la, 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 la. I was waiting for a twirl of the hair with her finger, maybe a lollipop. Oh, that was fantastic. I was laughing my ass off.
Are you calling your wife crazy?
No, I said I'm into Crazy Chicks. No, I said I'm into Crazy Chicks. Don't twist my words around. I love my wife, but I didn't say she was crazy.
But then you're not into her.
So you're saying I can only love one flavor?
Then you're not into her.
Yeah, I can only love one flavor. I'm into my wife, but I can love more than one flavor. I'm into Crazy Chicks. I dig it.
All right. Well, thank you, Meathead. And, of course,
I'll mute myself. Thank you.
Yep. Anyways, probably get some comments from you guys on Slammiversary, which we're going to talk about in just a minute after being done now talking about WWE. Raw will, of course, have more analysis on this Saturday's edition of Primetime. Speaking of Primetime, brand new episode coming up on Wednesday. We're going to actually take a look at the void that is left in WWE right now with the loss of talent such as Randy Orton and Chris Jericho most recently, but there's some names on the list who you may not have thought about. We're going to spend a good amount of time talking about who WWE is missing right now and what impact that's having on their business overall. That coming this Wednesday on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Wednesday night. But what we're going to do right now is take a time out. When we come back, we're going to talk about Slammiversary, which was last night on pay-per-view.
Monday Night Meltdown continues after this, live on Blog Talk Radio. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. Covering pro wrestling like no other, this is Monday Night Meltdown live on Blog Talk Radio.
Wrestling Report Monday Meltdown, Damian Nelson, along with David Hero and Matthew Thomas. And we're going to talk now about TNA Slammiversary, which was last night on pay-per-view. And many are saying this was TNA's best pay-per-view offering in a long time, if not ever. And I would tend to agree. There's not much TNA did wrong last night at Slammiversary from Dallas, Texas. There's a couple things we'll, of course, talk about that could have been done better. But overall, what a solid show from TNA Wrestling celebrating their 10 years in existence. David, what would you have to say? How do you want to start talking about last night's Slammiversary pay-per-view? It was just that damn good.
You know what? It was a really solid show. From the beginning to end, I thought all the guys worked hard. Great matches. Things were believable. And in a few of matches, it seemed like they were in a fight, which I thought was tremendous.
And let's go down match by match and talking about the opening matchup. Firstly, Hulk Hogan opens the show and says that, we're going to go a little old school here and talk about the X Division. And it was an X Division championship match that started us off. It was Samoa Joe versus Austin Aries in what was a tremendous these two they just went in there and they wrestled. There was no frills, no anything else going on. They went in there and they wrestled, and Austin Aries retained that TNA X Division championship. What a match.
It was, and those guys went from bell to bell. They gave 110%. They were stiff. They were snug. They were doing things. I mean, the match told a great story. It is so hard for these guys to put together something that makes sense, because when you start the show off, the spotlight's on. Everyone's waiting for TNA to screw up, and right. Joe, who has been known to not always have, the best match. He's had amazing matches, but lately he's been kind of in that funk where they don't know where he's going to be going creatively. He went out and worked hard, and him and Austin Aries, you know what? I knew that they were going to be one of the matches of the night, but they were a very close second.
Kid Cash versus Hernandez in the second matchup of the night. I've always been a fan of Hernandez. This was a solid matchup, but one question that you got to ask yourself is, why was it happening? We have not seen either of them prominently or featured at all on Impact Wrestling over the last few weeks. This match is sort of thrown in there. Not complaining because I enjoyed it, but what were your thoughts on the match, David?
Well, you know what? I mean, let's face it. I believe Hernandez is from Texas, correct? Right?
Yep.
So
Houston.
Hometown pop. Yeah, hometown pop, home state pop. That's what they were going for with it. You know what? And it was a nice way of bringing him back to the program. And let's not forget, the Bound for Glory series is coming up shortly. So it's another way of reintroducing talent that's going to be involved in that tournament.
Yeah. Devon and Garrett Bischoff team up to take on Robbie E. and Robbie T. Not a bad tag team matchup that saw Devon and Garrett get the win over the Robs.
It's amazing. I mean, if you really think about it, Robbie E. and Robbie T. are the only guys that they can pair Garrett Bischoff up with where the fans aren't going to wind up cheering for the heels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you put Bubba Ray in there with Garrett, well, the fans are going to get behind Bubba Ray because he's just going to beat the hell out of Garrett. It's not going to be Bobby Roode. He's not ready for that. So you put him in there with Devon, who's over as a babyface right now like crazy. And then you put him, and then, of course, on the opposite side of the ring are the Jersey Shore guys that the fans, just don't care for, regardless if they were good guys or bad guys. The fans just don't like them. But you know what? It's amazing that Robbie E. and Robbie T. were booed continuously throughout the match, even while Garrett Bischoff was being booed throughout the match. The fans just don't want to see Garrett. They don't like him. They don't have patience for him or whatnot. But you know what? I give Devon and Robbie E. a ton of credit because they're in the ring with two other guys that are pretty green, and Garrett and Robbie and Big Rob Terry. And you know what? They told a good story. But let's face it. I mean, they're obviously protecting Garrett Bischoff because of who his father is, and I get it. That's how it is in business, And it is what it is, and you can't complain. And eventually, he's going to sink or swim. But you know what? It wasn't a terrible match. It wasn't the best one, but I thought it worked.
Crimson. I'm sorry, skipped a match there, actually. A match where we all got points in the PWR draft. It's a three-way matchup to determine the number one contender for this Thursday's Impact Wrestling to take on the champion. And the contestants were Mr. Anderson, Rob Van Dam, and Jeff Hardy. A well-done three-way matchup that saw Mr. Anderson get the pinfall victory in that match over RVD. Good match.
Finally, Ken Anderson gets the big win. I mean, he's had success the past few months on Impact and on pay-per-view, but now he finally gets that win that's going to now elevate him, into his big match with Bobby Roode on Thursday on the Live Impact. Do I think it's going to be a title win for Mr. Anderson? Probably not, because Bobby Roode, they're building him, and they're making him bigger and stronger every single week, and I think him and Ken will have a good match. But Bobby Roode, he's a man to beat right now.
Crimson and his undefeated streak are over. He issued an open challenge last Thursday on Impact. That open challenge was answered by a returning James Storm, and James Storm defeats Crimson and ends the streak in very, very short order. This one a little obvious, though, because Crimson was a little more arrogant than usual about the streak. Be that as it may, good to see Storm back in the ring, and I'm not sure where Crimson goes from here, but at the moment last night, it was all done very well.
Yeah, you know what? It was done well, but I mean, I don't know. I you know what? I'm not a huge fan of your endorsed Crimson, but I think I would have rather seen him work with somebody else and just keep that streak going. Let him just be more arrogant, more of an antagonist. Let him carry that streak to the Bound for Glory Championship Series and then come up short. Not at Bound for Glory, but during that series somehow, what it means a little bit more.
Dixie Carter comes out. She announces it's the largest live crowd in the United States in the history of TNA, 4th Slammiversary. She thanks the fans, invites the entire roster out to the stage, and they make the Hall of Fame announcement at this point. And the Hall of Fame inductee, the first inductee into the TNA Hall of Fame, is not who everybody thought it was, but it was Sting instead. And at that moment, David, I said, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it could have been, and I don't care about politics and whatnot, which is what ruins both these Hall of Fames for these companies, but it should have been Jeff Jarrett. I mean, he founded the company. The first inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame was Vince McMahon Sr., I believe. Whatever the reasons are for that, I'm not faulting the fact that it's Sting, but it was a good moment last night, but in the back of my head was, what about the man who made it all happen?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, obviously there are some hurt feelings between Jeff Jarrett and Dixie Carter, and I think it's obvious. I mean, even the fans, love Jeff Jarrett or hate Jeff Jarrett. The guy has done business. He's made money. He's been a draw when a lot of people didn't think he was going to be a draw. And he started, TNA Impact Wrestling. And you know what? Everyone said, the company's not going to survive. Well, it has survived 10 years. Has it made money all 10 years? No, it hasn't. You know what? And that's just the nature of the beast. But it's still there. It's still afloat. It's getting better. The talent is better. The creative is better. And you know what? Yeah, Jeff Jarrett should have been honored. And you know what? He still may be honored. But maybe they just wanted to give Sting, maybe they chose Sting to put more emphasis on Sting as a Hall of Famer. So when he did have his match with Bobby Roode at Slammiversary, it meant that much more for Bobby Roode.
Yeah. The Knockouts Championship match was on the line as Gail Kim defended against Miss Tessmacher. Miss Tessmacher wins. She's the new Knockouts champion. A bit of a surprise there until they reminded us where she was from in the post-match interview.
And you know what? Good for Miss Tessmacher. I mean, you know what? She has come so far from where she started when she was part of the Extreme Expose on WWE CW TV. And she's, you know what? She's put her work in. She's had good matches with Gail Kim. And you know what? Right now, does she deserve to be the Knockouts champion? Yes. Is it going to be a long run? Probably not. But you know what? Good for her. Just shows if you put your work in this business, you are rewarded for it.
Bully Ray versus Joseph Parks / Abyss. I thought this was a well-done match. Bully Ray, again, spectacular. But, David, you were very complimentary of Joseph Park.
I think Joseph Park, his character, is #tremendous. I thought the crowd was big time into that match. They loved it, and they didn't do a whole lot. I mean, Joseph Park made it look like he truly was Clark Kent, fumbling and bumbling and awkward and the whole thing in the ring, and he was believable, and I will give him a ton of credit. He did a fantastic job, and Bully Ray did a great job of being the heel.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You don't seem too enthused right now. What's going on over there, amigo?
Oh, nothing at all. I know it was a great pay-per-view. I love talking about it. I'm having a blast.
I don't get hot. Damn. If you're hot, say you're hot.
Things did get a little confusing at this point in the pay-per-view, though, because Hulk Hogan came out and announced Christian Cage. Christian, of course, the current Intercontinental Champion after stealing the title from Cody Rhodes in WWE. This is the first time, David Hero, that a contracted talent from one company, while still contracted, appeared for a competing company, major company, on a broadcast event, pretty substantial and significant. However, everybody knew Christian was going to be there because Dixie Carter wasted no time in tweeting out over the course of the weekend that Christian would be in attendance And if he wasn't going to be the inductee into the Hall of Fame, which would have been weird anyways, why not have it be a surprise? I'm confused.
You know what? I have no idea. You know, as much as I enjoyed the pay-per-view, as much as I liked the pay-per-view, I thought that the show made a ton of sense. The one thing that made no sense at all was having Christian being in Dallas-Fort Worth. And yes, I get it. It was because they let Ric Flair do the Hall of Fame. It's funny how Ric Flair is no longer with the company, and now they're cashing in on Christian. Why not? And maybe they had to rush it now because of the pending lawsuit and whatever else, and they may not have gotten the cooperation that they were hoping for. But, you know, as talented and as big of a star as Christian is, he did not bring anything special to that pay-per-view.
Right.
Because he didn't say anything. He didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, and of course he was probably coached into what he could and couldn't say.
Hey, listen, you know that WWE Legal had a script handed to him as he boarded that plane to get to Dallas. You know that they were in constant contact with him throughout the night. They were texting and emailing back and forth saying, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this photo op, you can do that photo, you know. Yeah, it was very highly controlled. And you know what? You can't blame WWE, you know, for doing whatever they did. But you know what? Save it for something else. I mean, let it be a surprise. But even if it's a surprise, it doesn't mean anything because you know there's never going to be any physical, you know, altercation between Christian or whoever they're going to send and the TNA talent.
Yep. But it could have been so big. It could have been so huge because think of the buzz that would have been all day today as everyone out there would have been trying to figure out why. Why was Christian there? How is that possible? How did it happen? But at this point, it's almost like it never happened. Would you have called in that favor for Ric Flair?
No. I would have wanted something a little bit bigger, a little more interesting. But, you know, to be honest, I don't even think that they needed to get anybody in return. You know, yeah. Ric Flair is Ric Flair. He's one of the, you know, biggest names in the business. I mean, what if you're Dixie Carter, what could you really ask from Vince McMahon? You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, Vince isn't going to say, oh, yeah, sure, here's John Cena, Chris Jericho, Randy Orton. I mean, it's not going to be Kane. The only reason why it was Christian is because of the history. You know, she didn't ask for Ron Killings, who was an NWA TNA World Champion.
Right.
You know, and it's like, boy, why Christian? I don't get it. Because he's the Intercontinental Champion? But if you notice, he didn't have the belt with him. He didn't mention WWE or SmackDown or Raw, and he didn't mention the hard battles he had. He didn't say that being the TNA NWA World Champion was a great honor. It was so vanilla. It was so boring. It was so forced. It was so awkward. They did not cash in on having Christian there. They could even sell it, unless they dusted off the old Christian Cage T-shirts and sold them, you know, at the merchandise booth. There was no way they could have made any money by having him there last night.
Duly put. Very, very well put. It should have been unannounced, I guess, is really what it boils down to if this was going to be happening. And the payoff would have been almost what WWE did in the past. You never know what's going to happen on pay-per-view. You got to order. But I don't think anybody bought this thing because Christian was going to be on it. I don't think and speaking of announcements, as we talk about the couple of bad things that happened, they didn't announce who was going to be in the Hall of Fame. And apparently nobody really knew but Dixie Carter until it was announced. And obviously the people who put the video package together. Again, wrestling fans are conditioned to know who the Hall of Fame person is and to be convinced as to why they're going into the Hall of Fame before the Hall of Fame happens. And then we found out that the Hall of Fame induction wasn't happening until Bound for Glory, which makes all the sense in the world. But then why
what a swerve that was.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so then what are we doing now?
You know what? I don't know. You know what? Thank God they had a great house there. The attendance was fantastic. The crowd was hot. They were into the whole show. I don't think the fans were upset that there wasn't a Hall of Fame. But, I mean, you just have a Hall of Fame for one person, so I'm glad they're holding off to have it at Bound for Glory. But do you really have to announce it, 4 months in advance?
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we lead up to Bound for Glory. But there were new tag team champions crowned last night at Slammiversary as well, as AJ Styles and Kurt Angle defeated Christopher Daniels and Kaz, taking those titles in what was an excellent, if not one of the best tag team matchups we've seen in a very long time.
And you know what? That right there was match of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
Really?
And yeah, absolutely. Those guys were there. They were there for everything. I mean, they were catching, they were throwing. It was, the timing was fantastic. And those guys went out there and they stole the show. And I know how competitive Kaz is, and Christopher Daniels, who is one of the more creative guys in wrestling, and Kurt Angle's a machine, and AJ Styles. You know what? AJ Styles, he feels that TNA Impact Wrestling is his. And all 4 of those guys went out there, and they tore the house down. And I'm telling you, if I'm Bobby Roode and Sting, I was cringing, saying, I do not want to have to follow this. And they did. But I'm telling you, match of the year, and I don't know if there are 4 other guys that could put on a match quite like that.
The TNA World Championship on the line. Bobby Roode retains over Sting. Shenanigans, though, as typical in a Bobby Roode matchup. Not a surprise that Roode retained, but what do you think of the matchup?
You know what? It was slow-paced, which is, what they normally do, and that was fine. I get that and all. But, boy, the finish was something. I mean, when he hit him over the head with that beer bottle and that thing didn't explode, I felt terrible for Sting. And, I mean, none of those bottles just, they go all over the place, and that wasn't the case. And not only did Sting get it from the front, but he got it from the back as he split his head open when he gave him the Scorpion Death Drop off the stage, when you could even actually hear Sting saying, I hit my head, which was kind of funny. Just Bobby Roode goes, yeah, me too. But, you know what? It was the match that I expected. It wasn't going to be a 5-star or even a 4-star. It was 2 guys that went out there and were fighting. It was a great match. It was a great vehicle to once again show the world that Bobby Roode is a main event type player. He beat Sting now on a second pay-per-view, and now he's going forward on to Ken Anderson on Thursday night.
Overall, Slammiversary, a solid pay-per-view, and of course, we were tracking wins and losses for many reasons, but one reason being the points in the 2012 Pro Wrestling Report draft. And David Hero, congratulations on the 85 points that you scored last night, courtesy of Mr. Anderson, Bobby Roode, and Robbie E. And the Nelson family, very happy to pick up a total of 60 points last night, bringing the totals to 520 points for the Mighty Mouse Club and 360 points for the 2011 draft winner, the Nelson family. Oh, you can laugh all you want, but
no. Here's why I'm laughing, okay? Because I have how many points?
520.
520, and I have yet to have 2 of my guys on my roster have a pay-per-view match. That's why I'm laughing. That's what's funny. Wait till all my guys start clicking and they're on every single month. That's when the dominance
because since they're on your team, the curse is in place. They'll all be injured or fired by the time the year ends.
And I do get to pick up something now for Alberto Del Rio, don't I?
Sure.
Yes. And I will pick up that person on Saturday night's primetime.
Of course, you wait till the last minute. I mean, I picked Christian well in advance, replacing
Randy
Orton.
You picked up Christian, 7 minutes before the pay-per-view started on Sunday? Yeah, well in advance.
Doesn't matter. Come up this Sunday on at No Way Out. Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, Big Show, Christian, all in championship and or main event matches this Sunday, and they're all members of the Nelson family. So you have fun with Cena and Punk and Sheamus and Cody, and again, save Cody because you're going to ruin his career single-handedly. But we'll obviously be covering the pay-per-view No Way Out this Sunday as no other can. We have talked for long enough, an hour solid here. We're going to now enter the phone zone. As a matter of fact, actually what I want to do is I want to take a quick time out. We'll take a quick break, very brief, and then we're going to come back into the phone zone. We got many of you waiting on hold. Got a little bit of time for your calls, so we'll get to those in just a minute. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown. We're live on Blog Talk Radio, and we'll be back with your calls right after this.
Monday Night Meltdown continues after this, live on Blog Talk Radio. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. The Monday Night Meltdown phone zone is now open. Give us a call live at 1-877-317-9772. And be sure to press 1 to get in where you fit in and be part of tonight's live show. We'll call on you by your area code, and when you hear it, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then proceed with your question or comment.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio. And Damian Nelson, along with David Hero and Matthew Thomas. Hey, Matthew, didn't get a chance to get your thoughts on Slammiversary. Not sure if you got a chance to check it out last night or not, did you?
Yeah, I did, and I'll have to echo the sentiments of so many. One of the best TNA pay-per-views that I've seen in years, and the take-home thing with me was it felt like it mattered. So many of the TNA pay-per-views in the past, the matches have been good, the talent's been spectacular, but as far as just the feel of it really mattering, it kind of feels like it's been dialed in a little bit in the past. So I really walked away from last night feeling like, I don't know if it's the fact they're kind of, going to a new era here, going live on Thursdays, or the fact that it was kind of the celebratory nature of it being the 10th anniversary, but it really felt like there was kind of a renewed passion in a lot of the guys' eyes last night. So I really felt like it was a very well done pay-per-view.
Good analysis there, especially in the identification of the passion or the seeing it in their faces. How proud must they be? It is truly a company that shouldn't be in business anymore. From the beginnings, being weekly on pay-per-view, until Panda Energy / Dixie Carter, they came in and became the financial backers of the company after the hospital system had backed out. That was the financial backer initially. And then all these little things they've done over the years, whether it be getting Christian, Booker T, Kevin Nash, Kurt Angle, whoever it may be, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. But really the most substantial things they've done has been settling into a trend, if you will, and they've done that over the course of the last 6 months. They've fixed the back-of-house issues. David, we did a 3-part series on the good, the bad, the ugly of TNA, or what's right, what's wrong, and how you fix it for TNA. We did that last year. And to be honest with you, the things we identified that need to be fixed were the back-of-the-house issues. It's the marketing. It's the booking. It's the writing. It's the production. It's the venue booking. It's the live touring. It's the merchandise. They have addressed just about each and every one of those things. Much like WWE, TNA still has a ton of issues, but they're in such better place now than they ever have been in. And the last 2 months on pay-per-view, 3 months on pay-per-view, they've pretty much outdone WWE from a pay-per-view perspective, and that's not a small feat for that company.
Well, no, and the one thing we said they had to change the most was creative, and now that they've done that, the show seems to be making sense. They seem to be doing some cool stuff, and you know what? Good for them. But you know what? It took time for them to finally sever ties with Vince Russo, and they brought in some new blood, some new younger ideas, and they've been successful. Stuff has made sense, and when stuff makes sense and the fans want to invest into somebody, you can draw money, and that's what they're now finally doing, is they're drawing money.
Yep. We're in an extended edition of Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio. We're going to be going here for another few minutes. Got a lot of you waiting on hold. Many of you have been waiting for a long time and very patiently, so we appreciate that. So let's go to the phones now, and we'll ask you to keep your comments or questions as brief as possible. Give us a chance to answer them as best we can. And we're going to start out east, actually. We're going to go to Brandon, who's calling from Washington, D.C. Brandon, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, how you doing, fellas? I was calling as Brandon from D.C. I'm also a member of the Nelson family. And a Damian Park, by the way.
Yes.
I
just
want to make a quick comment on Raw, and I have 3 questions. I just give my answer real quick so you can answer them in whatever order you want to. I thought Raw was great. Anytime the Vin Man comes back, it's always great for ratings, always a great show. Slammiversary, I would give it a B. I thought it was a good show as well. But as far as my questions, first question, as far as the Pro Wrestling Report, when are you guys coming to the East Coast as far as the weekly show on My 20 here in Washington, D.C.? 2, I'm not sure if you guys, I've been waiting for you guys to kind of mention your thoughts on these images, I guess, that hit the web of the new WWE title belt that CM Punk talked about at the show, at the Wizard World show. And 3, question as far as what do you think we're going to go as far as the summer? I mean, we're kind of back at the same thing. I mean, this time last summer we were with Vance and Laurinaitis and CM Punk. We're kind of back here again at the summer with kind of the same thing. So, I mean, do you kind of see this going into a bigger storyline or a bigger thing? I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that again. Brandon Gordon, Nelson family number 1. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Brandon, from out in New York. I'm sorry, out in Washington, D.C. My apologies for that. Let's take those point by point. Firstly, as it pertains to PWR Primetime, we are very, very happy with our relationship with My 24 Milwaukee, and we are very, very happy with our relationship with Ring of Honor, which you'll see the fruits of that coming up in a few weeks on Primetime. Lips are sealed, right, David Hero, on that?
Absolutely.
But it's all about, much like we were talking about with TNA a moment ago, it's all about deliberate actions over a course of time. We are definitely interested in looking at talking to some additional markets for PWR Primetime to be on TV, but it really does take a ton of resources and a ton of time and a ton of back-of-house things that need to be in place before we are able to do that. So we will keep you all informed, obviously, and make sure you know where you can watch the show each and every week. Second thing Brandon talked about was that image of the WWE Championship belt, which I have seen floating around on a couple of websites. I don't believe it to be true. If it is true, it's no better or worse than the current title, in my opinion. But nothing will ever beat the Winged Eagles Championship belt. They should just bring that back. Oh, here's what's going to happen. When Cody Rhodes becomes the WWE champion, he is going to bring back the Winged Eagle title. I can see it now. So that'll happen probably within the next 12 to 16 months, I would say.
That's fine as long as it's all done before WrestleMania, just points.
And the third part of the question was the CM Punk storyline and where that is going to go. I will defer to you, gentlemen, on that. David Hero, I know you're a big fan of CM Punk.
Well, CM Punk, he's one of the super friends. I mean, of course I'm a big fan of his. I don't know where Punk's going to go. I mean, him right now in the three with Kane and Daniel Bryan Danielson, where does he go from there? Because right now he doesn't have a whole lot of heels to play with. I mean, is it going to be a big show? Is it Brock Lesnar? Is it going to be a longer program with Daniel Bryan? I'm not too sure. They got to do something creative to keep the fans interested in whatever CM Punk is going to do next.
Thank you again for that call, Brandon, out in Washington, D.C. Let's now go to the site of this past year's WrestleMania. One of the best weeks I've had all year down in Miami, Florida, even though you were there, David. Let's go to Brian calling from Miami. Brian, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Thanks for saying the WrestleMania site. It was a very good WrestleMania, I'll say that. Now, as far as tonight went, I really I have a comment and a question. Now the comment is about AJ. Yes, she's a crazy chick, but my big concern is whether she's really falling in love with if it's said she's falling in love with either CM Punk or she's just trying to get into Kane's head. Now, here's this is a follow-up question to that. After the pay-per-view that's coming up this Sunday, or is it next Sunday?
This Sunday.
Okay. After the pay-per-view, will it be confirmed whether she will be either with CM Punk or Kane, or is all of this just she's trying to get into their heads just so that she can mess around with them a little bit?
Thank you for that call, Brian from down in Miami. I'm not sure if it's their heads she's trying to get into. It could be the other way around.
Yeah, it was sassy, Damian Nelson.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. What I mean by that is one of them may be trying to use her against the others because clearly she's a distraction for Kane. So maybe that leads this to something more happening between Punk and Bryan of a physical nature in that matchup on Sunday. I don't know. I think she's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. She has been thus far, but I'm not sure she's going to be aligned with any one individual because I think at the end of the day, it's going to be proven that she's only out for herself.
Well, aren't they all? Seriously. That's why I'm a prenup.
Really? Really?
Wait, did I say that out loud? Damn.
Really? Yeah. You on a worldwide broadcast, you absolutely did.
I'm sorry, Mom. I wasn't talking about you.
Let's go back to the phones now. Let's go to David from Michigan. David, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, it's sad to hear about David Hero's divorce.
David, what do you have for us?
I want to agree with David Hero on the tag match last night. I thought it was Miami crowd last night. And if Dixie Carter wouldn't have tweeted that out Friday morning or whatever it was, they could have. I thought they could have. What about if they put Christian in the crowd just there watching Slammiversary throughout the whole show? It would make you think. Like, hey, is there an invasion? What's going on? Something like that. Even though invasion's been done 100 million times over. It's just been interesting to see a contracted guy.
Yeah, and one point I wanted to make earlier that I failed to do, just to be fair, none of us know what the agreement was between WWE and TNA for the Ric Flair appearance. There could have been, this might be what they had to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if it were WWE, who is as smart as they are to say, sure, you could use this talent, you must announce it in advance, and these parameters must be met. Maybe that's what happened. If it was not the case, then they definitely could have created that buzz. Remember when Alundra Blaze dropped the women's title in the trash on Nitro? Remember when Nash and Hall came in? There was enough question about what was going on that it built intrigue. They could have gotten a lot more out of his appearance last night if they were permitted to, and if they were permitted to do whatever they wanted, to do more than that. But, we did get an interesting question on Twitter from at Blanchard Buzz, who said, wouldn't it have made more sense to have a TNA champion appear on WWE TV instead? More viewers turn into WWE, maybe something such as Night as Champions.
Oh, I could never see that. I can never see Vinnie Mac letting that happen. They had Ric Flair on their Hall of Fame. He was at their WrestleMania.
But before the whole Ric Flair-Christian trade thing happened, and who knows, maybe there's more talents involved with this. Before that happened, would you have envisioned that a current WWE champion would appear on a TNA pay-per-view and then a WWE Raw broadcast all within a 24-hour period?
No, not at all. Just because I never thought that Vinnie Mac would even acknowledge their existence.
You never thought Vinnie Mac would what?
Would acknowledge their existence. By him letting Christian be on the Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, he acknowledged that TNA exists.
Yeah, but
right?
I'm sure that they. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that whatever deal was signed, there was never at any point a threat to WWE.
No, and there still isn't.
Correct.
but I think right now with this pending lawsuit, with now a restraining order, I guess you could say, against WWE, TNA, and all this stuff, it had to happen now, because you got to figure with everything going to be a mess shortly. There's no way that talent could go back and forth.
Just about 4 minutes left of show here. We've got time for one more caller, and we are going to go to a caller calling from, let's see, where are we going to go here? I'm looking here trying to pick. Let's go down to Jackson, Mississippi, and talk to Kevin. Kevin's been on hold longest. Kevin, you're live. Hey there, Kevin. Kevin still there? All right, looks like we don't have Kevin, so let's go to North Carolina and talk to Tony. Tony, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Tony.
All right, I've been TNA pay-per-view with number 10, one of the best pay-per-view they had in years. But I think, we all know what's going on with the Motor City Machine Guns. I think TNA needs to do something about that tag team, maybe bring some new blood, maybe bring back them two boys look like the Rock and Roll Express and them two young guys, and bring some new tag team talent up. WWE need the same thing, too. Both of them need to have the new young tag team come in there and set their vision on fire. And I think overall, going into the Hall of Fame, I'm sure they'll announce some more guy like maybe Akita Koloff, and maybe, or maybe Sid Vicious, somebody else. There'll probably be some more names in the next couple of months going to be added besides Sting. And if not, they should. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tony, as well, for calling in from North Carolina. Summer's, I think business is picking up a little bit in wrestling. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, a lot we talked about tonight, a lot going on in wrestling. We know we've got some things on the horizon in both WWE and TNA that will continue to build the intrigue. TNA's live every week. Going to have a live Impact again this Thursday. WWE Raw moving to 3 hours. A lot of people cringe when we talk about that, but, there's a lot of potential going forward in professional wrestling, and we'll be there right along with you every step of the way, including this Wednesday, the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, where we look at the void of WWE. We also go into the history book, looking back at the King of the Ring, the very first King of the Ring. All June, we're going to be taking a look at King of the Ring events. And, of course, your emails and Ask the Booker. If you want to get in and try to get your questions submitted, you can send those to comments@pwrshow.com. Well, gentlemen, Slammiversary and Raw tonight and last night, two good shows for both wrestling companies. Slammiversary, of course, being the main event, if you will. I want to thank all of our callers who called in here on Blog Talk Radio, and also want to thank all of you who joined us in the chat room and on Twitter and on our Facebook page. So thank you so much for your interactions with the Pro Wrestling Report. For the man they call Meathead, Linda Kay, Matthew Thomas, Dwayne Williams, and even David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown. We'll see you Wednesday on Primetime.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real.